This is Fox 5 News Morning.
The president back on Twitter, spending a lot of time over the weekend, once again defending his son in that meeting with a Russian lawyer. But is any of that a crime, what his son did? Ahead at 7:30, we're going to break it down with the former federal prosecutor. Holly, thank you. At 7:31 right now, the White House this week hopes to push the message of American-made products while also trying to sell health care reform to Republicans. But it's Russia that continues to dominate the headlines, and that meeting between a Russian lawyer, a Russian-American lobbyist, Donald Trump Jr., Jared Kushner, and former Trump campaign chair Paul Manafort. It's a meeting yesterday that one of the president's lawyers said it still amounts to a whole lot of nothing.
So when you talk about Russian collusion, colluding to do what? Colluding to violate what law?
Over the weekend, we also heard that the president has hired a special counsel to help the White House handle the Russian probe. So let's break down all of this with former federal prosecutor Seth Waxman, now an attorney with Dickinson Wright. Good morning.
Good morning. So
you say that the president's son and Jared Kushner broke no laws here when they had a meeting with the Russian lawyer.
Well, that's what we're hearing. I think at this stage, in my opinion, I think you'd have to say that the fundamentals and building blocks to a criminal prosecution have been laid.
What do you think critics of the White House and any collusion possible or not, what's the end game here?
Well, I think that Bob Mueller and his team are going to be doing their investigation. They're going to be looking at the documents, interviewing the people that were involved in this key meeting in June of 2016, and over the months that follow, they'll put together a case and determine whether or not charges should be brought.
Would that lead to possible impeachment? Would it lead to an ousting? I'm just trying to figure out what would be the response here.
Sure. So Bob Mueller's team, the special prosecutor, his charge is to determine whether criminal charges should be brought. Of course, treason is something that would be potentially brought, or impeachment in Congress. But the law that is at issue here seems to be campaign finance, that precludes anyone from receiving, soliciting, or giving campaign contributions or donations. And most importantly, in this context, the law talks about anything of value. So as we know, the Russian contingency offered to provide opposition research or dirt on Hillary Clinton, and that was given in the context of a U.S. election. So when I say the fundamentals or building blocks to a prosecution have been laid, at least at a minimum, you could say that those emails in that meeting might meet that standard.
Man, and that word criminal charges, too. I mean,
correct.
If I'm up for criminal charges, I'm going to jail.
At the end of the day, yeah, if there's a conviction, and of course you have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And this is, of course, also not some low-level operative in a state or local election. We're talking about the highest levels of our government. We have the three top operatives in Donald Trump's campaign, his son, his son-in-law, Paul Manafort, and those are serious issues.
Let's talk about the fact that the president has hired a special prosecutor, like yourself, a former federal prosecutor here, Ty Cobb, as far as we know, no relation to the famous baseball player Ty Cobb.
Okay. Not that I know of.
What, if you were in Ty Cobb's position, what would you be telling the president and his team?
Well, I think I'd be telling him probably what his current lawyers have been telling him, to lay off the Twitter account a little bit, to try to stay silent, to continue with the business of this country, and to let Bob Mueller do his job. I'd also maybe at this stage, given kind of what we've seen as this kind of drip, drip, drip of information that's come out, that the president stand up and say, look, I'm going to make everything transparent, have my son-in-law, son, come out and disclose everything, documents, such that it isn't kind of a constant drain on what his message, I assume, what he wants to talk about, which is, you know, the economics and the things that this country, the people of this country are most interested in.
We know that 3 people were at least in the room there with the lawyer. Does that speak to the collusion piece here or conspiracy piece? And if so, are there different charges, or is it a different level of allegation when you have 1 or more people in a room?
Yes, I think you bring up this concept of conspiracy. Let me talk a little bit about collusion for a moment. We've heard that word a lot.
Over and over.
Yeah, and actually in the legal context, collusion has no applicability. It's really more of a discussion word. It's, you know, people getting together to try to accomplish something, and that's fine. But in the criminal context, we look to the word conspiracy, which is an agreement between 2 or more people to do something illegal, and then some act to kind of carry out that plan. And in this case, what you have is a group of people, as I understand it, meeting at Trump Tower. And, you know, when you have 2 or more people participating, that's another, you know, kind of a hallmark of a conspiracy.
Okay, before we let you go, though, they're meeting to possibly get dirt on the Clinton campaign. So let me play devil's advocate here, and a cynical American. Doesn't everybody do this?
I think that happens often at both the state, local, and federal level. The difference here, of course, we have foreign individuals, Russians in this particular case. And so this particular campaign finance law is set up to protect the U.S. election system from influences outside the U.S. Territory and the government. And so when you have Russians potentially influencing our democracy, this law and Bob Mueller's efforts will be to protect that, and he'll ultimately decide whether charges should be brought.
That's the key then, at the outside, and Russia with its past, too, coming into play, surely.
Correct. Most certainly.
Right. Very eye-opening. Thank you so much. Seth Waxman is with Dickinson Wright Law Firm and a guest of the morning show now. Come back and see us.
I will. Thank you.
Okay. Tucker, over to you.